Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Rockwood number 2842 in a 625 finish. That means polished chrome is what it means. And the 2842 is a set of top and bottom bolts that are automatic. Automatic style flush bolts, top and bottom. And this video is to review the contents, talk about where they're used, why they're used, options, how to install them. So automatic bolts are those that automatically latch the inactive door when the active door is closed, is how these work. And this style bolt would be... The word automatic is important. These are automatic flush bolts. They're not constant latching or self-latching, and they're not manual. They're automatic, which basically means when this trigger is depressed, that bolt's going to shoot up, and it's going to engage in the top or in the header, or the transom, I suppose. And conversely, when it's installed at the bottom, it will engage the threshold or sill, whatever it might be. That's accomplished by when it's installed in the door, the active door comes and closes, pushes that trigger in, forcing the bolt to latch. Okay. These models also have a clutch feature, which I like. If something were to restrict that, you're not going to damage the bolt because of that clutch feature, meaning if you had some sort of a tragic misalignment in the doors, or if it was in the bottom and there was dust, dirt, debris filling the bottom strike area. So first of all, the 2842 is a pair of bolts, one pair. They are available in different finishes, probably about 6. Let's take a look. See how many we can come up with. Well, being Rockwood, they'll all but entertain doing it in any color you want. If you want antique nickel, which would be a 620 finish, they'll do that for you. I'm quite sure that they will. 605 polished brass, 606 satin brass, 612 satin bronze, 613 oil rub bronze, 625 polished chrome, 626 satin chrome, 630 stainless steel with a brushed finish, which tells me that they'll also do 629 polished stainless, and then US 10 BE, which would be a 640 BE, I think it's called, an oil rubbed bronze equivalent. It's a powder coated finish to emulate oil rub bronze, and that's really the faceplates that we're talking about here, and we'll get to those in a moment. The description down below this video is going to tell us that this is a pair of top and bottom bolts that are 6 3/4 by 1. That's their faceplate size, the typical or the most common size, but not the only size made. You can have bolts that are wider. For fire-rated doors, up to 3 hour. For metal doors is what they're rated for. You're not going to see these installed in wood doors, even though you technically could see them installed in wood doors. I suppose they would not be at all even remotely appropriate for a wood door installation, even though I suppose you could make it work. I know that you could make it work. You want a different bolt if it's a wood door, and we'll go over that. Non-handed, you can literally take this, flip it up, flip it around. Top is bottom, bottom is top, it's no problem. Low closing force, that means it doesn't take a lot of pressure to push that trigger in. And if you've got automatic flush bolts, let's talk about that for a moment, you're probably going to need a coordinator, a gravity style, a bar, a soffit mounted coordinator, because you have to have the inactive door in position before the active door closes, because you've got these scar plates that are attached to the active door, and if you were to have the active door closed first, probably not reasonably to expect the inactive door to latch itself, because if the active door was closing and you pulled the inactive closed, as soon as that trigger starts to hit, it's going to start to push that bolt up. Well, by then you might not be, you're not going to be in closed position for the bolt to travel freely. So you've got to have a coordinator. Bar style are the best. Well, not necessarily the best. They are the most elegant, I think, but not necessarily the one that you'll use. But you've got to have that inactive door closed Active door comes and closes, shoots the bolts up and down because it pushes that trigger in, and you're in good shape. Fully automatic opening active door retracts the top and bottom bolts. So you'll see an application where you want to be able to have relatively easy egress to open that inactive door. You can open the active and then immediately push the inactive open. That's a part of the design of these items. Override feature prevents damage to the door or bolt if the bolt heads are blocked from entering the strike. We demonstrated that. Bolt head rod is adjustable up to 1.5 inches, which means you can tailor the position of the rod in the body by that sort of dimension. And really they're saying that because you might have a scenario where you have an unusual undercut or sill condition that you need a little bit longer reach to get the bolt down into position, but you can't necessarily suffer having a condition of when the door is in the open 90-degree position and it's undercut may be different than when the doors are in the closed position. To get the doors open to 90, you might need to have them undercut a little bit more, but then when the doors are closed, you've got a large undercut. You need a little extra reach to get the bolt head down to where it has to go. Thermal lock automatically locks the inactive door under high heat conditions due to fire, which means there is a principle inside of here This operates on a principle, and I have to refresh my memory about this. I had a math teacher in 5th grade who was speaking of another teacher who was going to substitute for math, and he didn't like that because that meant time off for him, I think. He said he had forgotten more about math than that other teacher had ever learned, and sometimes I feel like I've forgotten more about hardware. So the thermal lock automatically locks the inactive door under high heat conditions. So what happens is, if this piece of plastic were to melt, it is holding this spring back here that if the door's in the closed position, you see that little black gizmo that's there, that little screw hanging out. Well, right now the lock is locked, right? I'm holding the keeper in. If that piece of plastic were to let go, that spring's going to pop out and catch the bottom of that black stub or set screw that's there, keeping it in the locked position. Of course, a mandatory requirement of fire doors, naturally. Now, there's a link below this video to the product brochure, and let's tackle that real quick. So the 2842 is a set of 2840s where you can do a top bolt only, which would be permissible provided you were using a fire plug at the bottom of the installation. If you were looking for if you were looking for self-latching bolts, combination bolts where you had an automatic at the bottom and a self-latching at the top, the application of that would be when you open the active door, the inactive is in the held position with the 2845. The bottom bolt would be retracted, but you'd have to put your finger in the faceplate of the top bolt to get that to open. Sometimes that is an appropriate application as well. Now let's pull up the product catalog for the rest of the, I want to talk about the wood door style. We've got that product catalog pulled up, and the wood door style would be the 2942, and that would be appropriate because the mortising for the wood door type where you're mortising the corner of the door and not being forced to drill a hole down through the wood door, which is, while it's done all the time and quite often, is not the appropriate bolt to use, even though it's used all the time. Some people don't like the 2942s because they believe it takes too much wood out of the edge of the door, and I certainly wouldn't disagree. It would just be a limitation of course, being able to physically machine the door for a wood door for a 2842. Might be a limitation of the manufacturer's procedures for their fire rating authorization or permissions. The 2942 would be the wood door version. The 2945 is that combination self-latching and automatic at the bottom for wood. And then as you go through the rest, you'll see variations on these bolts. The fire door bolt which would be used when you are using a bolt at the top only, like a 2840 at the top only. You'd need a fire plug at the bottom, which is basically an intumescent material that if it hits a specific temperature, it will literally project into the other door, keeping it all captive at the bottom, locking the two doors together. Variations of all the flush bolts are there. Very handy document to refer to so that you can make an informed decision whether or not the 2842 is what you want. Automatic top and bottom, 2842. If you want a top only, 2840. Be mindful if it's a fire rated application, you'll be looking at using a fire plug as well. Now, moving on to the document called template, which will be included with your paperwork. This is not the same document, but it has all the same information. It's going to talk to you about how to machine for this item. And we're doing a hollow metal application, and you're probably not going to be doing this work at all, and you certainly wouldn't be doing the work in the field if you had a fire-rated door. So let's talk about what we're dealing with. You have your faceplate. This is a 625, so it's going to be a brass-based material with a polished chrome finish, highly reflective. It's going to go over right like that. Finish off that installation, and that's all you see in the door. Very nice, attractive work. A phenomenal fit and finish from Rockwood, as always with Rockwood products. You're going to have and I'll put this part down, you'll have a 6 3/4 by 1 inch preparation. You'll notice that they have a dimension for the, these are 12 inch, these bolts are going to observe the standard 12 inch dimension when it comes to generally the top of the door to the top of to the center of the preparation. You'll notice that nowhere on there is this called 12 inch, but if you were going to alter this installation at all, you would substitute this rod. If you had an 8-foot door, not that it would matter on automatic flush bolts, but you might make that top rod longer, even though because it's automatic, I don't see necessarily why you wouldn't. In fact, I'd probably make an argument for you not to, so that there was less rod to push, I suppose. But you've got a 6 3/4 tall by 1 inch wide faceplate prep that's 1/8 of an inch deep, and you can see that on the template. They want you to drill a 5 5/8. Pardon me. They want you to prep. You're going to be your hollow metal manufacturer, but if you were to do this in the field, 5 5/8 would make sense. You would certainly have no problem with a 5 5/8 prep because you won't be hitting the screw holes top and bottom with 5 5/8. Then they're giving you 3/4 inch from the edge of the door to the center line of your rod when it's installed correctly. They have the guides that are included that will go into your hollow metal door, your properly manufactured and prepped hollow metal door, because this will act as the rod guide. So it'll look like that at all times. That square preparation and that square bolt will obviously keep it from turning. You sure don't want it to turn. It could come or disconnected. It would over time. That's how that's going to look. Let's take some dimensional properties of the plate on the top, or at least verify what they're showing us. I like to verify it. 1 7/8 mortise. I would say you'd be okay with that. The width they have at, I'm not seeing it on the template, but 1 inch wide. Let's find that 1 inch wide template, or that 1 inch wide prep. Still not seeing it. Hard to believe that that dimension would be missing, but let's move on. Strike plate, top and bottom, they're identical. Very nice looking fit and finish. Overall height of that strike is going to be 2 1/4. That's very common. 15/16 is the typical width for a flush bolt strike, and that'll meet the ANSI preparation standards. Now those scar plates, that's going to be overall inch and 5/16 or so, inch and a quarter. Overall width, about an inch and 13/16. And that's going to be installed exactly how they show it. So if this was our door, and let's say that we had a, let's say we had a right-hand active. From your perspective, you're standing on the inside of the opening. This plate's going to be mounted right on the edge of the door, like this, basically. Come and make contact with the face of the trigger, and the closer on the active door is going to push that in by forcing this plate to come and depress that by hitting it right here. I'm not going to force that on there. I don't want to muck up the finish before it gets to the client. And they do give the dimensions there for that. The thickness of the strike plate, back to that, is 50 thousandths of an inch, 0.050. You would certainly have that mortised into the header of a steel frame. There's no doubt. And you can see that if you're working with, on the right side in the template area, if you're working with an inverted top channel, hollow metal door, that'd be really easy. You just take it from this way to this way, and you can attach that right down to your channel, and the bolt head will come up right through there. Obviously the same on the bottom door. That will usually be inverted bottom channel, sometimes flush top channels, sometimes flush top and bottom, depending on the specification of how the doors were called out to be manufactured. Screws will be included for everything in a complementary finish. There'll be a combination wood machine screw, and that's because these screws will go with other pieces of hardware. A number 8 screw like that, that's going to be combo wood and machine thread. If they're using it with, let's say, roller latches, that can go into a wood or a steel door. This is meant for a steel door, but those screws will be combination screws, and they work quite well in that regard. Looking at the balance of the template information that's here, I don't see anything else to specifically call out. If you're going to try to mortise this to a wood door, and you can, potentially, provided it doesn't violate, all of the requirements of that door and being fire rated, you're going to need to mortise the body out, that 5 5/8, and then the width, they don't give that to you because they do give you 1 inch, even though you probably would, you'd need 1 inch. So 6 3/4 by 1, 5 5/8 deep at the proper center line. You'll have to do they don't really tell you even how to do that. You'd have to have the hardware in your hand to physically measure it. 2-inch deep mortise, meaning 2 inch from the edge of the door to the back. They don't tell you where to start that 5 5/8. So be mindful. You'd have to have that piece of hardware here to know that. But they don't supply it because it's not meant for a wood door. That's the bottom line. If you want a wood door version, order the wood door version. It's not only code compliant, but it will make your installation, possible. Now, the name Rockwood is quite synonymous with quite high quality trim and auxiliary hardware and many other items. I'm very partial to Rockwood, and it's because I love how the product looks when I get it. It's obviously manufactured in such a way that their fit and finish is exceptional. The material is backed by people who, in my experience, are generally beyond expert when it comes to product knowledge, and that's incredibly crucial when you're talking about trim and auxiliary hardware. There is a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Rockwood products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to not only the core Rockwood catalog where you'll find the 2842 bolts, but their RM series, their architectural door pulls. It's basically a 100-page catalog of custom door pulls that you're going to see on the outside of the fancy restaurant, the bank, the shopping mall, residential applications. So if you're looking for pulls that are standard size, 5, 6, 7, 8 inch, you're looking for those that are 10 foot long, anything in between, Rockwood has those in that catalog, and they do a great job with that material. If you have any questions on the Rockwood 2842 in a 625 polished chrome finish, set of automatic top and bottom flush bolts, or any other Rockwood product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.